Good morning, Boker.
Boker Tov.
Thank you, thank you. So starting the third parak, and as we said, the first two parakim were about sukkah, and now the third parak is about lulav. And the Mishnah starts with the psulim of lulav. Rashi says that each of the four minim is going to have its own Mishnah. First talks about lulav, then hadas, harabas, esrog. Each one gets its own Mishnah. Some of the psulim are going to be repeated, and they apply to many of the four species. But first we talk about each one, lulav, and then each one individually. Lulav agazav ayavish pasal, a stolen lulav or a dry lulav is pasal. It doesn't say clearly how dry is dry, and that the post can talk about the Rishon talk about how dry is considered dry. So when we get to the post, eventually we'll talk about it. Places over here says maybe if it's nifrach b'tzipora, they compare it to other sugyas where it says different measures of how something is considered dry, but it's not so clear because it doesn't talk about it by lulav itself. A stolen lulav is going to be the whole sugya today, and we'll talk more about that in the Gemara. A stolen lulav is the pasuk. Rashi right away tells us the pasuk says ulukachtem lachem, and that the Gemara dashed a few pages ago that has to belong to you. And for that matter, even a borrowed lulav wouldn't be good because it doesn't belong to you either. So a stolen lulav is possible, and a dry lulav is possible. Shel asher v'shelei dach is also possible. Asherah is a kind of a tree that they would worship as avodah zarah. And Rashi says the Gemara is going to have to explain what's wrong if it's avodah zarah. Why is that a reason why it should be possible? So we'll have to wait for the Gemara for that also. And Irani Dachas is a city which most of the people had been found guilty of doing avodah zarah, and those people are killed. The people who did not do avodah zarah are sent away, but no, they're not killed. But the whole city is supposed to be destroyed, and therefore, if there's a lulav that grew in that kind of a city, it also becomes supposed to be burnt. And Rashi says if it's considered burnt, so then it's not a lulav anymore. It's missing the shear. Rashi says, so that also would be possible. Niktam
Tell us for the parsha, Rebbe.
This week's parsha. Niktam Rosho. If the top of the lulav was cut off, if you take it very simply, the top of the lulav was cut off, banged off. That also would be puzzle. Taisa talks about the top two leaves, which we'll see more as we go into the Gemara, that the middle leaf, all the leaves are doubled, and the middle one is something special about that. It's more nikr, it should be more complete. It might be talking about that. The rosha might mean the middle leaf. And nikta means that it's been chipped off, so it's puzzle. Nifritzu of puzzle. So we have a few pshatim with the word nifritzu. Rashi says that all the leaves were torn off the spine, and you just tied it together. And you might have thought that's kosher. That's a big kiddush of Rashi. I think for sure that's possible. All you have is just a very makeshift lulav. You take the spine of the lulav and all the leaves are torn off and tied together again. Taisa says that the leaves of the lulav, which are all doubled, as we know that the lulav leaves grow double, and if you split them down the middle of each one. That's the way you make a broom. Taisa says. The Gemara later on says that nifritzu means like a broom. But what does the broom mean? What does that mean? Rashi says you tear off all the leaves and then you connect them again. Taisha says that you don't tear them off, you leave them connected to the spine, but you split each leaf. So that also would be possible. There's other Rishonim from the Rambam, they say that it means that the leaves are hanging, which I think it means that after the lulav opens up, it's first considered like a young branch, a young leaf, and then when it opens up, the more that it opens up, so then when it opens up completely, it's called maybe nifritzu olav. And that's also possible. Nifidu olav, kosher. Nifidu olav means that the leaves are separated. The leaves are separated. Maybe it means they wasn't completely separated, but it started separating. Also, that's also still kosher. That even though it's kosher, it also is like it sounds that it's kosher, but the chatchila you should bind it together in a way that they're all compacted and straight up, not that they should be leaning out to the side. Sine hara barza. Many people, the Sfardim, I see, they have a custom to bind the lulav all the way up and down. They're not like the Ashkenaz. They made a couple of rings. That's fine. Then they did the whole thing. So that might have been necessary only in those places when it started opening up. So then you would bind it up in order to close it together. But the lulav that we have, they're bound together. I'm not sure if that custom is still necessary. Tzine hara barzal ksheros. Rashi said the word tzine means palm trees of hara barzal. So that's a certain place probably, and the way that the palm trees grew over there, the Gemara says they had very few leaves. And the Gemara is going to say the minimum how many leaves they have to have, but they're very few leaves, and they're not overlapping very much the way our lulav is supposed to be. but it's still kosher. The Gemara is going to say it has to be overlapping a little bit. Somewhat has to be each leaf overlaps other leaf. I never saw these lulavim, so I don't know how relative it is. Lulav sheish bo, but I'm not sure if the picture book has a real one or just. You have to look at the picture book if they found one or they just made one. I think they made an artificial one sometimes. A lot of the psulim, what is that? Virtual. I think that a lot of the psulim they couldn't find them even, so they just made them virtually. Lulav sheish bo shlosha tvachim k'nei l'nanei bo kasher. The words would have sounded like if a lulav has 3 tvachim, is good enough. But Rashi is not by the way that the Gemara doesn't mean, says it doesn't mean that. It means the lulav which has 3 tvachim and also enough to shake, which means the extra tefach altogether. We'll have to see the Gemara why it means that. Altogether, the lulav has to be 4 tvachim. Rashi already also throws in that there's going to be an issue in the Gemara if it's the leaves, the whole total lulav, or it means the shedra alone. The spine of the lulav besides the leaves, which go even higher. So maybe the spine has to be 4 tvachim, which is what we paskin, that the spine itself should be 4 tvachim, and the leaves go even higher than that, because the leaves go above the spine. So that was the Mishnah. We had a couple of psulim, and also the end of the Mishnah had the shear of the lulav. The Gemara starts. Kapasik v'tani, lo shnei yontif pisha, lo shnei b'yontif sheni. The Mishnah says all these psulim, lulav, gozel, yavesh, pasul, shalasher, nidachas, all these psulim, it doesn't say only on the first day. It says it's pasul. It sounds like it's pasul even on the rest of yontif also. No difference the first day or the second day. Yontif sheni, as far as the Gemara means over here, means the rest of the yontif. So this is based on a preface that the pasuk only says lukachem lochem yom rishon creates hadar kapos morim and afet savos v'avi nachal usmachtem lufnei Hashem elokechem something shivas yamin. The pasuk says you take on the first day. The mitzvah deraisa is only one day. The mitzvah that Torah says take a lulav and esrog everything is only the first day. The pasuk does end off usmachtem lufnei Hashem shivas yamin. You should rejoice before Hashem 7 days, and the Gemara says that means that in the Beis Hamikdash they did take a lulav all 7 days. The mitzvah deraisa says to take 1 day. But Lefnei Hashem, usmachtem, the rejoicing before Hashem means that you should rejoice with the lulav and esrog before Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash for 7 days. And that
the lulav and esrog, besides the first day is Rabbanan?
Yes. And that the Gemara says that the reason they made the Rabbanan, the Gemara is going to say later on, is because Zechel HaMikdash, that Tzion Hi Dor Hashem, Mechlad Bo Yidrishi, is supposed to seek Tzion, and the fact that we don't have the Beis Hamikdash, we show that we want the Beis Hamikdash by saying we want to go back to those times when we had the lulav 7 days. We only have it 1 day now because we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. So the Rabbanan Matake and Zechel HaMikdash have the lulav for 7 days, but that's only the Rabbanan. And the Gemara is asking that the Mishnah over here that it says that lulav v'gozel is possible and yavesh is possible. It sounds like it's possible all 7 days, not only the first day, all 7 days. That the Gemara is going to have difficulty with. The word hadar, it said the Pasha says that the Gemara means creates hadar. It says hadar, creates hadar. Rashi says that it doesn't mean hadar, it just means that it's supposed to be muhudar. Like Zakeli Van Vei, all mitzvahs in general are supposed to be beautiful. Rashi is a big chiddush that Rashi says that the problem that it's not beautiful because of Zakeli Van Vei is supposed to beautify the mitzvahs is even possible if you don't have it. And that's a big chiddush. And Rashi says it can't be. Rashi brings proofs. We had before the Gemara already before on Daf Yud Aleph that Zakeli Van Vei is only lachatchila, make it beautiful. Doesn't mean that it's possible if you don't have that. Taisus learns that Gemara means the word hadar means creates hadar. That it says when it defines what an esrog is, it says creates hadar. And that the Gemara says one understands that if it's yavesh, if it's dry, it's not beautiful anymore. Of course, creates hadar is coming to define which tree you should take an esrog, but also says it should be beautiful. So that beautiful, that's coming to define what the esrog is, and that the Gemara understands that even in Yontif Sheni, even when it's only Rabbanan, but Rabbanan instituted the mitzvah Rabbanan that it should be, but it creates hadar. So it's supposed to be beautiful even on the 7 days. And therefore, a dried esrog, a dried lulav we're talking about is not beautiful. Even though it says creates hadar by the esrog, but applies to lulav also. This brings down. And therefore, the psul of yavesh applies all 7 days. That the Gemara is happy with. Bishlama, that's all good. Yavesh is not good for all 7 days. Hadar bina, you have to have hadar, but like it's not beautiful, and therefore it's possible all the days. Ela gozel, but why should a stolen lulav be possible on the rest of Sukkot? The first day, yes, because it says lachem, but the rest of the holiday, that it doesn't say lachem, the Gemara thinks even though it's Rabbanan, the Gemara didn't think that lachem should apply to the rest of the holiday. The first day is possible because it says lachem lachem, and that means it should belong to you. So we understand that a lulav v'gozel was possible the first day. Ela b'yontif sheni, but the rest of yontif, amai lo, what's the problem? So the Gemara is difficult because Taisus points out that it's all the same pasuk. Creates hadar, and the Gemara is like Pasha to the Gemara that the word lachem applies only the first day, and the Rabbanan didn't institute the rest of the Chag. But the word hadar, that's in the same pasuk, that applies even the rest of the Chag also. It's interesting how the Gemara takes it like a given that hadar applies all the Chag, but lachem only applies the first day. So that Tosfos talks about, and Tosfos says maybe on the bottom of the page, he says that maybe when you're talking about the actual mitzvah, the actual chefza, the actual object, so then it's more simple to the Gemara that it applies the rest of the Chag also, and they instituted Rabbanan, of course only Rabbanan, but they instituted for the rest of the Chag also. But maybe on the way of taking it, that it should be yours, that they did, there were things that they didn't institute the rest of the Chag. And that's the halacha really. Why the Gemara is so simple to the Gemara maybe needs more explanation, but that's the fact. That lachem only applies the first day, it doesn't apply the rest of the Chag. That you're allowed to borrow a lulav in the first day, you're not allowed to even borrow a lulav because it's not yours. And the Gemara is asking, how come on the second days and the rest of the Chag, how come there's a problem with the stolen lulav? If there's no problem of being lachem, so it's okay. So the same way you're allowed to be also with a borrowed lulav, you should be allowed to be also with a stolen lulav. Of course, you're not allowed to steal. That's not the subject. You're not allowed to steal. But if you have a stolen lulav, maybe you're also missed anyway. So that's the Gemara's kasha.
So how it goes on the rest of the?
Yes, that's what the Gemara says. That Bishlam, there's the line inside Bishlam Yavish, Hadar Binan Valaka. They even since it's not Hadar, even on the rest of the Chag, we understand that it should be possible. But Gazal, the Gemara thinks only the first day it should be possible, not the rest of the Chag, and that's the Gemara's
So
kasha.
even the first day comes out on Shabbos, you still have to go out and buy nice for the rest of it. You have to change it anything.
Right. The Hadar is going to be right. Just to point out, there are 2 points of it. There's Hadar and there's Muhudar that they call. Like Hadar means creates Hadar. What's called a creates Hadar. That's coming to define the Etzrog might be even possible. The Zakeli Van Veyu that we learn out all mitzvahs to be beautiful mitzvahs, that's a nice thing and it's beautiful, but it's Lachatchila, Hidar mitzvah, but that's not Ma'akev. Rashi seems to say yes, but it seems to pass like Tosfos that that's not going to be a problem. Yes.
But the hadith for the rest of it is Rabbanan.
Surely. The whole mitzvah is Rabbanan and the rest of the Chag. But they instituted it only on the first day. But the Gemara understands that when they instituted Rabbanan to take a dollar meaning the rest of the Chag, they instituted Hadar also for the rest of the Chag. But for sure, the mitzvah of Lulav the rest of the days is only Rabbanan. So that's the kasha. How come a stolen Lulav is possible on the rest of the Chag?
So do people just like if the first day is on Shabbos, do people spend less money? Do they?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think the price goes down either.
Oh,
You might say that mitzvah the rice and mitzvah Rabbanan. I think it's all the same. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. I'm not saying that it's necessarily should be so, but I think the way it is. If you ask what the way it is, I think that's the way it is. I'm Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Hashem Bar Yochai. Next page. Mishum, round up Lamed now. Mishum Davalei Mitzvah Baba Veira. Because if the only way you got the lulav is by stealing it, so it's a mitzvah which came about through an avera. So the mitzvah is also no good. Not only, of course, you did avera stealing, but now we're saying that even the mitzvah that you did with the stealing, also it's not a good mitzvah either. And that's a new concept that Gemara is to prove now. And we're saying that it also applies even to a mitzvah Rabbanan. This is Tosfos makes that's what's the emphasis of the Gemara, that there's a mitzvah Baba Avera, even there's a problem of mitzvah Baba Avera, even on a mitzvah Rabbanan. So even the rest of the Chag, that it's only Rabbanan. If you're only doing the mitzvah through stealing, so also the mitzvah is not a good mitzvah. Now he's going to prove that. He's going to prove the problem of mitzvah Baba Avera. Shenema, a pasuk in Malachi, Ba'avesim Gozel, that's not Piseach. That's not Pesach. Piseach is lame. And it's talking about a kind of a korban. The Nabi, the Malachi, is rebuking the Jews who brought korbanos that were stolen or Ba'alei Mumim, blemished. So it says you bring for a korban stolen, gazul, a stolen animal, or piseach, a lame animal, pesach oleh, a sick animal. And he was saying that's the way you bring a korban, a stolen animal, a lame animal, a sick animal. The fact that it says it in the same sentence, gazul, dumi the piseach. The fact that it says it in the same sentence, it sounds like it's comparing it. And the same way, lame is pasul, piseach, so too gazul, so too a stolen animal. Not piseach less they tekanta, av gazul less they tekanta. The lame animal, it's called a mum. It's called the mum kavua. It's not a mum over. It's not a temporary blemish. It's a permanent blemish. It's lame. It's not going to get better again. And so too, the fact that it puts together piseach and gazul, av gazul less they tekanta. Also, the stolen one. Also, there's no way that it's ever going to be good. A stolen animal is possible for a korban. And what do you see from that? The Gemara is still in the middle of explaining where do you see that there's a concept of mitzvah Baba Avera. So the Gemara says it from this pasuk. Since it says that a stolen animal is possible for a korban, what is the word? Indefinitely. That it's always going to be possible. A stolen animal is always possible for a korban. So this comes in a new concept that maybe we had once upon a time, that there's such a thing called kinyane gezela, that a gazlan sometimes he acquires the object. Not that he doesn't have to pay back. He has to pay back. But sometimes he doesn't have to pay back the object itself because he acquired the object. He wasn't allowed to. But the owner can't come and say that give me back my object. If he does claim the money, he can't claim back the object itself. What is that? So here it talks about Yush. Yush means when he gives up hope. The same way when someone loses an object, he has Yush. So then he gives up his ownership. So there's a concept also that maybe when a person something was stolen from him, if he was Mayayish, he gave up hope of ever getting it back, maybe he's relinquishing his rights, he doesn't own it anymore. Of course, the person owes the money because he stole it from him, but he can't have a claim on the actual object anymore. And the Gemara over here said, asking the animal.
Rabbi, don't we need Yush and Shina Rishus?
Very nice. So that's Machlokas, and the Gemara number base is given that Mandiyamar, that opinion. But this Gemara is going that Yush alone is enough. The word Kedi means Yush alone. So this Gemara is going with the Mandiyamar that Yush alone is enough to acquire.
Okay, thanks.
That's a nice point. But there is a machlokus about it. I don't recall how we passed him, and maybe I should look it up. But if anybody knows offhand, I don't recall how we passed him. This Gemara is going that Yush alone is enough to acquire, and therefore the Gemara is asking this Ganav, this Goslan, who stole an animal. So it's true, as long as the owner did not give up hope, so then it still belongs to him. So it's not his. I was going to say, what's the wrong with my korban? Does it say you have to own the korban? Yes. That's a pasuk. The beginning of Yikra, Adam Kyakum Mikem, a person who is going to bring a korban from you. The more dash is Mikem, it's a drash that it has to belong to you. Amar Achmana. One second, please. That by korban, the shoulder has to belong to you, and before the owner gave up hope, so it still belongs to him, and it doesn't belong to you. You can't bring a korban that you don't own. How can you be Yush? After the owner gave up hope, so the Ganav now, the Goslan owns it, so why can they bring the korban? And that it's indefinitely possible. Here the Gemara learns out that a mitzvah the korban that you stole, even though now you own it, but you're not allowed to bring it for a korban because it came about through an aver. And from here the Gemara is learning out that also by the lulav on the second day of Yom Tov, even though there's no din of lachem, it still has a problem of mitzvah b'avera. If you got the lulav by stealing it, even though there's no din of lachem, you don't need lachem on the second day. But the problem is that you got it through an aver. Yes, please.
What Gadi asked, the Iker Machlokas here and in the Bubbas is whether or not Yush is just a siluk of the things that are preventing you from being konit, or whether it actually is poil to enable you to be konit. And it's a big machlokas. It can't be paskanda kalaka yad, just like the one we just got into now, which is mitzvah bar b'avera. There's kamashitas on it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what to think about the seal, of course. The question is if Yesh alone is enough to be Kona. Yesh Kedi Kona, Yesh Kedi Lo Kona. If Yesh alone is enough for the Ganav to be Kona or not. That's my focus.
Yeah, that's the thought. If it's only the siluk,
okay,
then
the Lumdus is another point. Okay, good to say that, but fine. But the Lumdus is like a step further. The point is, there's machlokas if Yesh alone is enough to acquire. The Gemara finished. So far, we finished the first point. There's going to be a bonus now, something agav. What did the first Gemara talk about? That why is the reason that after on the second day there's no din of lachem b'chalal. The whole din of lachem doesn't apply in the rest of the Yom Tov. They were instituted to take the lulav the rest of the Chag, but they didn't say that has to be lachem. You're allowed to take a borrowed lulav. What's the problem taking a stolen lulav? Because it came to an avera, and the Gemara proved there's such a concept of doing a mitzvah to an avera that maybe the mitzvah is not good. And we have two applications already. One is going to be when there's no din of lachem, like on the second day of Yom Tov, or if you did acquire it with Yirush, however you acquired it, even though now it is lachem, since it came to an avera, also you're not yotze. The Gemara now on the top line. Yes, please.
I don't know, offshoot from or attached to the king.
No, not at all. Nothing to do with hidden mitzvah. It's Hashem doesn't want mitzvahs that you didn't have to do the mitzvah. Not only that the avera is an avera, the mitzvah is not a mitzvah either. If you only did the mitzvah through an avera, so Hashem says, I don't want this mitzvah. This mitzvah is disqualified, not a good mitzvah. Of course, he gets a punishment for doing the avera, but did he get a mitzvah? And this Gemara is saying mitzvah of avera, you don't get credit for the mitzvah either. The Gemara continues this next couple of lines, about 5-6 lines, seems to be a bonus. Also similar to about the issue about a stolen korban. The same mandama that I was speaking until now. This is a pasuk in Yeshaya, different pasuk. I am Hashem who loves justice. I hate theft in the korban olah. Hashem doesn't want korbanos that are stolen. And the Gemara explains, Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, explains, a mashal will be to a king, a mortal king that's going through the toll booth. He told them to pay the toll. Who does the toll go to? It goes to the king anyway. So why are you paying the toll with? It just goes to drive straight through. Everyone should learn from me. They see you can't go through the toll booth without paying. And even the king doesn't go through. Everyone should learn that you have to pay the tax. So too, Rashi says that the fact that Hashem hates Gezel, even everything belongs to him. Before it belongs to Reuven and Shimon, it belongs to Hashem. So what's the difference if it's stolen? But Hashem wants to teach everybody that he hates Gezel, he hates theft. And even though it belongs to him, but he looks at if Reuven stole from Shimon, he doesn't want it anymore. This has nothing to do with the issue we spoke about Mitzvah Baba. Here we're talking about a stolen animal. Why did Hashem say that it's possible? Because he hates Gezel. And here the Gemara even adds on, he hates Gezel. He wants us to learn from him also to hate Gezel. That's the side point. Back to the issue we were talking about before. This was all in parentheses, the second Rabbi Yochanan. But the issue before we spoke about is that is a lulav puzzle on the second day, and we said a lulav gazel, a stolen lulav is a puzzle on the second day. The rest of Yom Tov besides the first day, there's no din of lachem. It doesn't have to belong to you. You could use a borrowed lulav, but you can't use a stolen lulav because mitzvah b'avera. Itmanami. We learned also in the name of others. Rabbi Ami before we had Rabbi Yochanan. Shem Bar Yochai, now it says Rabbi Ami says the same thing. Yavesh possible with Shein Hadar. The reason why Yavesh is possible is because it's not beautiful last full 7 days. Because possible we should never let mitzvah b'avera. And it's not talking about the first day. The first day is possible because it has to be lachem. It has to belong to you. But it's talking about even the rest of the days is possible because it's a mitzvah which came to an avera, and therefore it's also possible. So this was the first opinion so far. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Ami, and even Rav Shem Bar Yochai, the Tana, he said that it's possible on the second day because mitzvah b'avera. But now the Gemara says that's so. The whole thing is not possible. Rabbi Yitzchak. This all is arguing on Rabbi Yitzchak. Who's Rabbi Yitzchak? Then Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani, Rabbi Shmuel. So Shmuel is the madam over here. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani, the name of Shmuel. Lo shana gal Yom Tov Rishon, Yom Tov Sheni. Yitach Yosef B'Shol, Yosef Nami B'Gazel. He denies the whole thing. He says that the whole original given that the Gemara assumed that the Mishnah says Pasuk Vatani, that it says absolute statement in the Mishnah, Ulu B'Gazel V'Yavash is possible, and the Gemara understood it means even the rest of Sukkot, and that's the Gemara trying to figure out why. We came to the conclusion because mitzvah baba vera. Now the Gemara says, the Shmuel says not only that. Shmuel says the Mishnah is only talking about Yom Tov Sheni. It's not talking about only talking about Yom Tov Rishon. Only because there's din of lachem. Why is still B'Gazel possible? Why is it still lulav possible? Only because it doesn't belong to you on the first day. Lachem. But the rest of Sukkot, you are Yosef with the stolen lulav, and he doesn't hold to the concept of mitzvah baba vera. No, he says that the Mishnah only talking about the first day of Yom Tov, about Yom Tov Sheni, the rest of the Chag, Yitach Yosef B'Shol, Yosef Nami B'Gazel, just like Yosef with the borrowed lulav, because there's no din of lachem, Yosef with the stolen lulav. Of course, you're not allowed to steal, but the fact that he stole and now he did a mitzvah with it, he is Yosef the mitzvah. Tosfos, just to mention Tosfos, the bottom Tosfos says a concept, says an idea, which we're not going to go the rest of the Gemara, just to put, I just want to mention it. Tosfos says that everybody might agree to the concept in general, mitzvah b'avera, but over here that's only Rabbanan. Maybe on Rabbanan he doesn't hold the mitzvah b'avera. The second day is Yom Tov, it's only Rabbanan. Maybe on that they didn't say that a mitzvah b'avera is a problem, but if it will be a real daraisa, so then maybe everybody agrees to it. But we're going to learn the Gemara straight without going into that point. That Shmuel seems to say that there's no problem of mitzvah b'avera. You are Yosef a mitzvah. So comes out of Machlokes. On Mishnah that says Lul B'Gazel is possible. How about the second day? The second days of Yom Tov, the Cholamoy, the rest of the days besides the first day. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Ami said that it's possible because of mitzvah b'avera, and Shmuel says that it's kasha. So Gemara's kasha on Shmuel. Masiv Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. It says yes. What about it?
The rice.
Yes. Right? Yeah, the mitzvah the rice upon fill is the rice. If someone, we spoke about this yesterday.
Right, yeah.
A stolen tefillin, if it's a mitzvah baba vera. I should let's mark it down. We had the point of Tzitzis HaGozel a couple of pages ago, and they make it Aftes over there. I said because it says to make for yourself. Asul lahem tzitzis. That's why Tzitzis HaGozel is possible. You want to know about places where it doesn't say, is it also going to be possible because of mitzvah baba vera?
Especially if the devices.
Masiv of Nachma Yitzchak, the kasha from our Mishnah, which we learned the whole time. That's what he said the whole time. This Mishnah says that a Gozla is not good, but he wants to show that it's talking about Yom Tov Sheni. He's going to prove that it's talking about not the first day of Yom Tov, it's talking about the rest of Yom Tov, because, and the kasha is very obvious. Why doesn't it say that a borrowed lulav is possible? if it's talking about the first day that you have to have lachem, then it shouldn't have said just a big thing that a stolen lulav is possible. It should have said a borrowed lulav is possible. That would have been much more relevant to say on the first day. Hashol kosher. The fact that it says that a stolen lulav is possible, we could deduce that a borrowed lulav is kosher. Amos, what are we talking about? The first day? Sorry, gotta go a little smaller. By lavdi day. On the first day that it says lachem, then a borrowed lulav is not going to be good because it doesn't belong to you. So the Mishnah that says the stolen lulav is not good, it should have said even that a borrowed lulav is not good. Elalav yamtiv sheni. It must be talking about on the rest of the days of yamtiv that you don't need lachem, and so it says gazel is possible because honey gazel possible. Isn't that a fair shariah that the Mishnah is saying that a gazel is not good even on the rest of the days? Still now he does tell a machlokes. He says talking about the whole yamtiv. He stays on only the first day. Now the Gemara is proving it's not talking about the first day. The first day it shows that a big chiddush that even borrowed is not good. It's mashma the borrowed is good. We're talking about the rest of yamtiv, and still gazel is not good. Must be mitzvah above. There is a problem. Amarava la'olam b'yamtiv rishon. Really, he's talking about the first day. And he asked Kasha, he should have said a big chiddush even a borrowed. He says the opposite. Which is a big chiddush? The big chiddush is that gazel is not good. Why is that? The mission means to say without a question. That's without a question. That's not even a question. That shol is not good. Doesn't belong to you. But you might now. We thought that shol is better because you're a nice guy. Buy the shol borrowed. You didn't do anything wrong. You just borrowed a lulav. That's not good. And that gazel, you stole it. That's much worse. If shol is not good, it should have said that. That's a bigger chiddush. Now the Gemara turns the tables. The Gemara says no. That shol is not such a chiddush. Gazel is a chiddush because shol surely doesn't belong to you. You borrowed it, surely doesn't belong to you. By gazel, it might belong to you because there's a way of acquiring. Sometimes a person steals and he acquires the object, as we said before. That sometimes by stealing, you did bad, but the mice you acquired the object, you just owed money back. But the object belongs to you. So that's what he says. He might think that it belongs to you. Doesn't belong to you, surely it's possible. Here the goes into a new concept that stam gzeli by when I stole something, when somebody stole something, could we assume Gazel means, the Rashi points out, the Gazel means not he went into his house in the dark. He stole it in front of him. Gazel in broad daylight. He stole from him. So the Nigzal, the one who was stolen, the one who was robbed, he's conscious of it. Does he give up hope right away? We didn't hear him. Yish means that we hear him say, wow, I lost it. He says, by lichson kiss, that wow, whoa, like I lost it. But if he doesn't say that, could we assume that he gave up hope? So that's the question. Do you say that you could assume that if he was robbed and he knows about it, that he gave up hope from ever getting it back? Or no, he says right now I'm going to go to the police, and right now I lost it, and I couldn't help myself, I couldn't fight with him, but I'm going to go and I'm going to get it back. I'll go to the Bezdin, I'll go to the police. So that's a machlokes. That's a question about stam gzeila yish b'ayim. These are, let's get the words stam gzeila yish b'ayim. That we could assume on default that gzeila is considered that the owner gives up hope. So if that's true, the Gemara is going now also that yish kedikani, that yish alone is enough to the ganav to acquire it. So you might think that it's considered his. You might think that it's considered the ganav's, and it's better than shol. If it's borrowed, you surely don't own it. The borrower doesn't own it, but the ganav's gazlan sometimes does own it because if he stole it and the owner saw it being stolen, so he gives up hope. Maybe you could assume that he gives up hope of ever getting it back, and therefore the gazlan acquires it, and now it's his, and it could be Yotzei. Kamash Malan, that he's the Kamash Malan what? Kamash Malan, if you don't say Stam Gzeila. The Gemara is going now, that you don't say, the Gemara is coming to answer the Mandiyam Shmuel, that doesn't hold of Mitzvah Babaver. So Kamash Malan doesn't mean Kamash Malan that Mitzvah Babaver is still not good, even though it's Miyash. The Gemara means to say, Kamash Malan, that you don't say that Stam Gzeila used by them. You don't say that the owner automatically gave up hope. Maybe he still has intention to go to the police and to get it back. So therefore, you're not guilty because it's still considered Gazel. Why did the Gemara say this now? That if you hold that Gazel is kosher on the rest of the days of Yantif, so why does the Mishnah say Shol is not good? Even Gazel shouldn't be good on the first day. Again, on the rest of the days, he holds Gazel is kosher. So the Mishnah is not saying that. The Mishnah is saying only Gazel is on the first day. So it shows that a bigger chiddush, even Shol is not good. The Gemara answers that Gazel is a bigger chiddush. Shol totally doesn't belong to you. Gazel you might think belongs to you. Kamash Malan doesn't belong to you because you can't assume that the owner gave up hope. That's the end of the sugya. Right here is the end of the sugya. By the word Kamash Malan is the end of the sugya. 3 lines up. And we just had a machlokes, and the Gemara doesn't continue. We finish the machlokes. Is the psul of a mitzvah b'avera? The way Tosfos says on Rabbanan, is it a problem to be yotzei the mitzvah with a stolen lulav after the first day? The first day is lachem, surely has to belong to you, and if it doesn't belong to you, you're not yotzei. But on the rest of sukkahs, that there's no din of lachem, and you could borrow a lulav. If it was stolen, is it a problem mitzvah b'avera? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Ami said, yes, there's a problem with mitzvah b'avera. Also, Shem Bar Yochai and Rabbi and Shmuel, Rabbi Yitzchak ben Achmeni, and Shmuel, he says that there's no psul of mitzvah b'avera. You could be yotzei, and that's the end of the sugya. As far as the halacha goes, the poskim have machlokas about it also, and the Ramah says to be machmir that who's that like Rabbi Yochanan that mitzvah b'avera is possible. So therefore, a stolen lulav is not good even on the rest of sukkahs also. No sugya.
Rebbe,
Yes, please.
the top Tosfos is very important though because he is Mavir. He dawns on. There's, according to him, two different ways you could have mitzvah b'avera. One way is if it's that the first mitzvah is ma'afsher at the second one, and the second way is when they're boyin ka'achas, which is the last line of Tosfos. And otherwise, he says there's no mitzvah b'avera.
If somebody did an avera, but the mitzvah that he's doing is not a direct result of that avera, then it wouldn't be considered a mitzvah b'avera. Only if the way that he's here, he stole the lulav. The only way he has the lulav is because he stole. But if he happened to do an avera, but it's not doing the mitzvah as a direct result of that avera, so then it wouldn't be a problem of mitzvah b'avera. Yashikah. New Gemara. Amalu Ravuna Lahanu Avankari. Ravuna said to Avankari, he's Avankari. What's Avankari? So it seems to be the what we would call the merchants of the Arba Minim. Rashi says it doesn't mean Dafka Arba Minim, any kind of peddler, any kind of a merchant. Others have a different shot that it means the people who were in charge of the royal purchases. But for our purpose, it means the sochrim, the merchants of the Daled Minim. So Rav Huna told to them, Kizav Nisu Asa Me Akum Me Goyim, Lo Sikzazu Atun, Elo Likzazu Inu, Vayavoluchu. So they used to go to Goyish fields, to Gentile-owned fields that were growing Asa. Asa means Hadassim. For our purposes now, we're talking about Hadassim, Lulav, Masra, it's all the same. The halacha is that a Lulav, a Gazel, also Hadas Gazel, a Rava Gazula, Esra Gazel, all possible. So here the case was about Asa, which is Hadassim, the myrtle branches. So they would go to Goyish fields and they would buy the right to cut down the field, and they would cut down the field of myrtle branches. They go to sell it. So he says, don't do that. When you buy Hadassim from Goyim, don't cut it down by yourself. But they should cut it. The Goyim should cut it down. The Goyim should cut it down. They should give it to you. What's the purpose? What's the difference if you cut it down, they cut it down? My time, what's the problem? Because Stam Goyim, we have to be cautious that most Goyim, Stam Goyim, they stole the land. Even though they say that it's their land, could be, you don't know what happened over there with the contracts. You don't know they pushed somebody out of that land. You have to assume that the Goyim stole the land, and it might be, as Rashi says, it might be that it was really Jewish-owned land. This might be Jewish-owned land. Maybe it depends on the time, and it depends on the time and place. But at the time over there, you have to assume that maybe very probable that the Goyim who owned the land is really Jewish-owned land, and the Goyim stole it from them. The Gemara continues. The karka ain't an exelis. This is a new concept. That karka cannot be stolen. Real estate cannot be stolen. Even if somebody pushes somebody else out, it still belongs to him. And even if he forged documents, Lamaisa belongs to the one who really owns it. And just because somebody else took it over, it doesn't change ownership. But Taltalim, if you have portables, what do they call that? Personals.
Put on your tefillin.
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
1 second.
Didn't we just say that they stole the land and now it's saying the land can't be stolen?
What does it mean it can't be stolen? What does it mean to say that land cannot be stolen? What does that concept mean? I just was explaining what does it mean. What does it mean that land cannot be stolen? What does that concept mean? That was the issue. What does it mean that land cannot be stolen? So it means halachically it's not stealable, which means that even if somebody stole it, it still belongs to the original owner. And to other Taltalim, in contrast to Metaltal, that was he does the ability to steal it, and sometimes he requires it also, as we just saw that years. We're going to see some other issues also. But karka ain't an exelis is a concept that means that no matter what you do, it still belongs to the real owner. Now, if that's true, even if you bought these Hadassim from the owner, it seems to be the Goyish owner, maybe he's not the real owner. If he's not the real owner, it still belongs to the Jew, whoever that Jewish is, wherever he is. And what's going to happen? If you're going to cut down the Hadassim yourself, it's going to be a stolen Hadassim. you're the one who stole it now, and you didn't acquire ownership. The Gemara is going to talk about that you stole it. It's not the aver of stealing it. We're not going to say that you shouldn't go to an apple picking from a goyish field because maybe it's really Jewish and now you're going to be stealing it. By taking it off the ground, as long as it's ground, it belongs to the original owner. Once you detach it, now you stole it. So that the Gemara is not concerned. If you go apples and pears, that's not a problem. But Hadassim, Lulavim, Asrogin, want to have a kosher lulav, so we have to be choshesh. Maybe it's going to be possible because it's going to be a lulav agazel. It's going to be a das agazel. It's going to be a stolen adas. Why? Yes. Oh, so let's see. Therefore, the eight says that they should cut it down. So they stole it. The guy stole it. Because when they're going to steal, when they detach it, so now it became stolen. Now it's not any more karka, and it became it became a metaltalin, and the owner gave up hope. The case is the owner didn't give up hope. The point of karka and exelis means that you can't steal karka even if the owner gave up hope. But here now, once it's picked off, so now the owner's yush takes effect, and now it's stolen and yush. Already the owner gave up hope. But now this is what Gadi pointed out before. That is yush alone enough to acquire that the Gazan should acquire it. This Gemara holds that yush alone is not enough to acquire it. The Gemara Naman Aleph held that yush alone was enough, yush kedikani. But the Gemara holds that yush alone is not enough to acquire it. Yush plus something else. The Gemara is going to say soon this very short page, but the Gemara is going to talk about yush and shinoi and maisa, yush and shini Hashem. That if you have something else together, that has to be considered the change. That now it becomes within your ownership. So the question is going to be that it goes off, and now he stole it, and the owner was Miyayish, and now when he's going to sell it, so then it's going to become Shini B'Shus. Shini B'Shus means that it transfers ownership to two different owners. So the Gazlan, when the Ganav over here, when he cuts it off, the guy cuts it off. Now he stole it. It has yush, and also Shini B'Shus when he gives it to you. That was what Rav Huna told these Avankri. Don't cut it off yourself, but let the guy cut it off, and then when he gives it to you, then you're going to own it. The Gemara says, what's the problem? Anyway, they're going to sell it. They don't use it for themselves. These are merchants. They sell it to other people. So even if they're going to steal it, which is, again, the Gemara is not concerned with the stealing. It seems like it's not enough of a given that all the carcass is zealous. As far as the issue of stealing, we're not going to say you can't go and apple picking and pay for it. That's not a problem because we're not choshesh as far as the issue of zela for some reason. But we're only choshesh is it a kosher esrog, is it a kosher hadas, is it a kosher lulav. So the Gemara says that be worried that maybe it belongs to a Jew really. So therefore, they should cut it off. There's years and then Shini Rishus. But the Gemara says on the third line, he goes to a bank, you'll have a year by Lamiyadahu, Shini Rishus be done. They're selling it. They're not going to keep it for themselves. So if they cut it off, so they're the ones who now make it a metal to them. It's not anymore attached, it's detached, and now the years takes effect. And then when they sell it to the consumers, they're going to be the ones who are going to be using the mitzvah of Hadassim for the Dalit Minim, and they're Yosef because it's already Yesh and Shini Rishus anyway. So the Gemara says you're right. They don't have to, for all the things that they're going to be selling, they can cut it off themselves. But he only means to say, all Huna meant was to say that you a bankri, you also take a little. Besides selling it, you also have a Dalit Minim for yourself. The socher, the merchant of the Dalit Minim, he also has to save one pair for himself, one set for himself. So in the set that you can use for yourself, so that asks the guy to cut off because then you're not going to do Shini Rishus. Again, the ones that you're going to sell to other people, so then you're okay. You can cut it off yourself, and it's going to be years and Shini Rishus when you sell it to the other Jews that you're selling it to. But the ones that you can use for yourself, so there's not going to be any Shini Rishus. So therefore, make that the guy should cut it off, and then he'll give it to you. That's going to be the Shini Rishus, and then you're going to be Yotzei. The Gemara Sakasha, there are other ways of being called also besides. This Gemara goes that Yesh alone is not enough. The Gemara on says Yesh alone is enough. Gemara says that Yesh alone is not enough. You have to have also Shini Rishus. The Gemara is going to say another 2 points is going to be Yesh and Shini Maisa, and also Yiddish and Shini Hashem. That's the underlined. Maybe we'll get a little highlight over here. Is going to be where is that? Shini Rishus. Not coming up. Okay. Here. Shini Rishus. Okay. This delay. I'm sorry about that. Let's go back somehow. No, it's not even coming up. Oh, 1 second, please. Okay, so we have a Shini Rishus over here. And we have over here now, the Gemara is going to ask Shini Maisa. And the Gemara at the bottom is going to say, talk about Shini Hashem. The bottom line, Shini Hashem. So it's if even though Yish is not good enough, but there's some kind of change. There has to be some kind of a change, either a change of the ownership, change of property. That's the transfer of Rishus, Shini Rishus, or Shinui Maisa is going to be you did something to change the actual object, and Shinui Hashem is going to be that name change. So the Gemara is asking that even if the Avankari, these peddlers, that they're going to use these Hadassim for themselves, and there's no Shinui Rishus, but Knubi Shinui Maisa. And the Gemara understands the fact that you put the Hadassim into the lulav, you tie it up together, the egged, that you take the lulav together with the Hadassim and the Rabbas and tie it all together, that's considered you did a change, you changed it. So is that not enough to be called a Yesh and Shinui Maisa? With the Knubi Shinui Maisa, why is it not enough to be Kona with the fact that the owner gives up hope once you cut it off? And also there's a Shinui Maisa, so why do you need the Goy to cut it off, let the Jew cut him off himself? The answer is because of a lulav and tzarech eged, that you don't have to. Lulav and tzarech eged means you don't have to tie it together. Even if you do, it's not considered that you're changing anything. It's just a hidur, but it's not that until now it was a single individual hadas, and now it's tied together with the lulav. You don't have to tie it together. Then things lulav tzarech eged, even if you hold that you do have to bind it together. It's only considered a change in the actual object, only if it's a permanent change, that you can't change it back anymore. It's you cannot retract. But if it's a retractable kind of a change, that even though you put it into the lulav, but you bound it together, you can simply untie it again also. That's not considered a permanent change, and it's not kona. And the last kasha is with Knuba Hashem to make Korhavale Asa Vahashta Hoshana. And the fact that the name changes also, the Gemara thinks that's considered a good change, and you can be called with a stolen object. And the Gemara thinks that this first is called a myrtle branch, and after that they called it Oshana. In those days, once they used it for the lulav, since they used the Arba Minim, so they didn't call it a myrtle branch. Today also we don't call it so much a myrtle branch. We're going to call it a lulav. Once you put it together with the lulav, you call it a. And the Gemara thinks that first it's a myrtle branch. In the beginning, it's a myrtle branch, hadas. Once you put it together with lulav, I think today also, when people have a set that's already bound together, they say, "Can I have your lulav?" It doesn't just mean lulav; it means the whole thing, the whole set. So too, it's called the hoshana. So that before, when it was individual, before it was tied together with the rest of the galvinim, it's just called a hadas, a myrtle, and afterwards it's called hoshana. Once it's together with the lulav, the Gemara says, "Make karnami lasa hoshana karvale." Even before they put it together with the lulav, it's also called the Hoshana because they know that's going to be used for the Hoshana. They call it Hoshana already. The word Hoshana we don't use today. We use Hoshana, but the lulav used to be called Hoshana, the set. And these Nadasim also used to be called Hoshana. So therefore, the Gemara says no Shini Hashem. That's the end of the Gemara. What do we do today? We learned first the mission with all the psulim of lulav, Yavesh. We're going to get to the rest of them later. The Gemara's main issue is that Yavesh, we understand, is possible all the days. It's only the Rabbanan. The mitzvah of lulav, the rice is only the first day. The rest of the days is Rabbanan Seichel Mikdash. Yavesh is possible because you have to have Hadar. Rashi says the Kelev and Beyu. Tesu says Hadar, and that's the hard Pashup Pshat because the Kelev and Beyu is not Ma'akev. But Hadar is all 7 days. But the Gemara is all the issue of the Gemara is all about Guzzle. That a stolen lulav, why should it be puzzle on the second day? The first day is lachem, and even a barred lulav is not good. But the second day, that a barred lulav is kosher because you don't need lachem, and even though they made it rabbanan, they didn't institute the lachem part. You don't need lachem on the second days. On the rest of the days of sukkahs. So how come a stolen lulav is not good? We have machlokes. Some say it is good. Shmuel at the end says that it's kosher, but the Baruch Begin says it's not good. Mitzvah baba avera, and he backs it up with the pasuk in Malachi that says Hashem says I don't want a carbon that's stolen, and even after you kone it with Yush and Yush, whatever you hold Yush. If you hold, that's also machlokes not gemara. If Yish alone is enough to be kona, and even if you hold Yish as kona, still Hashem doesn't want such a carbon which was stolen. Even though now it's not considered anymore stolen, it's considered yours. Still, it's a mitzvah b'avaveru. So there are those that hold of that, but Shmuel argues. Taisha says maybe only argues on Rabbanan, maybe on the Rice he also agrees mitzvah b'avaveru. It's left as a machlokes, and the poskim also argue about it. And the Ramah says just to be machbet, even on the second day, it's possible to use a lulav b'gozel because mitzvah b'avaveru. Agav, the Gemara also mentioned about Rabbi Yochanan. It says the mashal of the king that passes by the toll booth, he pays taxes also, and everyone should learn not they have to pay the tax. And Hashem wants we should learn that everything that's stolen is despised. Hashem doesn't want stolen goods. The Gemara speaks about those who are going to get cut down to the Lovim, Adas, and whatever it might be from a Goyish field. There's a concept called Karkain and Exelis, that even if the owner gave up hope, it still belongs to the original owner. And the one when it does get cut off, then the Yush takes effect. If you hold the Yush alone is good, so then it already would have been owned by the buyer. If you hold the mitzvah, the Pasha says this whole Gemara number base doesn't go of mitzvah b'avera, or else the Kasha wouldn't have would apply that if you hold mitzvah b'avera, so it's still a problem. The Gemara is not going with mitzvah b'avera, as Shmuel held, and the Gemara said that therefore you have to have Yush and Shini Rishus, or Yush and Shini Maisa, Yush and Shini Hashem, in order to be able to acquire it, and then you'd be allowed to use you'd be allowed to use it. The Pasha says that we're not going with mitzvah b'avera and Amid base. If you're mitzvah b'avera, maybe there's a problem. If you stole it, if somebody else stole it, I'm not going to say mitzvah b'avera. But if you stole it, so the mitzvah might be considered mitzvah b'avera, and you wouldn't be able to, even if you own it. The Gemara says that, in Amud Beis at least, that Yish alone is not enough to be kona. You have to have something else, another factor, either that it changed ownership, or that it changed that Maisa, or that it changed that there's something in the object itself, or that it changed the name. And the Gemara says that the lulav, the adastim, they don't change the Maisa. If you're lulav ben saracheged, which we pass like that, it's not considered an actual change, and also shinachos delivery. So the fact that you could untie it, it also is not considered a permanent change. And the name doesn't change because it has the original name even before you put it into the lulav. As far as the first point about Shini Rishus, so the Gemara says the ones that the merchants are going to sell to other people is going to be Shini Rishus when they give it over to those people. But the ones that they use themselves, they should make sure that the guy is the one who's going to kind of cut it off, and order should be Shini Rishus when they acquire it themselves.
So how do we pass it?
I forgot about, I don't know.
I heard a story.
About this point about Yush
Yes,
Kedi, is it Kani or not? And also, okay, Mitzvah Baba Bey, we said that the Ramah is Machmir Mitzvah Baba
I heard
Bey.
a story, and from the story, it seems that Yeshua alone would be the story about it happened like 100 years ago in the time of Elchanan Spector, that a lady went, usually the husband went shopping, anyway, he couldn't go, so he gave her 10,000 rubles, their whole life saving, and she was supposed to buy material. And then when she goes to buy the material, she goes into a pocket, she can't find it. She lost the wallet with 10,000 rubles. She freaked out, she went crazy. And then showed up 2 days later, she was looking around for whatever. 2 days later, a Jewish guy, a frum guy, and he went over to her and he said, I found your 10,000 rubles, and she gave all the things. He says, very, very funny. He says, but it's mine, because you owe me Irish it. And
That's nothing to do with there's no gzeil over there. There was no stealing.
No, there's no stealing.
And the issue about stealing is only if you have to give back the original object. But surely you owe the money. So there's a different subject. You're talking about Shabbos Aveda. Someone lost something. Someone lost something. If they're miyarish, so then the owner, the finder will be allowed to keep it.
right.
So we're not the subject. This is talking. So what's the story over there?
Okay, so the robber of the town thought that this guy was right. But he said, but it's so much money, I'll write to a Lachon inspector and I'll ask him his channel. Anyway, the Lachon inspector answered that it's 100% hers and not yours. Why? Because everything that a woman owns is the husband's. And since the husband, she never told the husband because she was scared, to tell the husband that he never even knew about it, so he couldn't be Miyash.
So it's Yesh
So
Lamadas.
it's Yesh
Yesh Lamadas, and therefore he was not.
And that's why he told me to get back.
Yes, you go. Thank you. Yes, you go, everybody. Have a good Shabbos. Thank you.
Mazel tov to Emmanuel.
Oh, Emmanuel, last night was the constant. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, Emmanuel.
Yeah, everybody should have simchas. We should see Gadi and everybody over there who needs a shidduch should get a shidduch quickly.
Amen.
Hey.
Amen.
Amen.
Listen, Rev Sholem Gold just told me today that he wants to make a million for Rosh Hashanah like last year. So if anybody, I know Emmanuel Yidavud, I think last year, and so we're asking everybody from last year that to join us again this year for the.
Last year was on the roof.
Again.
Again on the roof. Again on the roof.
Count me in. Amen. Count me in.
Gadi, you'll come?
Yeah, I'll come. That's
Okay,
yeah.
good.
I'm a suffix still. I have to verify something.
Okay.
Okay, yes, go everybody. Thank you.
Good Shabbos. Shabbos, everybody.
It's time to thank you. Got to everybody.
Rebbe was saying about the rule of